Now we're going to apply the ideas we learned in the previous video to work with young children. Teachers can use a variety of sources to learn where a child is. They can use systematic observation, samples of children's work, other assessments, the child's family, key informants from the child's community or cultural group, and the research base on children's learning and development. We learn best when what we are learning is meaningful to us, when we can connect it to what we already know. Let's move into a preschool classroom and see how one teacher makes learning meaningful as she meets her 3 to 5-year-old learners where they are.
So how far should I go, Alexi?
1, 2, 3, 4.
Children learn best when what they learn is meaningful. Teachers determine what is meaningful to individual children and to all of the children in their classrooms by collecting information from multiple sources. Brenda Hieronymus learns what the children need in her classroom by using multiple sources of information.
When I'm planning, I have to decide what to put in the entire room. So I have to think about my whole class and what I know about that class. So at the beginning of the year, even just this few weeks into the year, I know the general age group. So I know I have 3 to 5-year-olds. I know how many children I had last year and what their experiences might be. I also know about typical child development and typical development in math, the construction of math knowledge.
To build the children's math knowledge, Brenda plans math games connected to one of the children's favorite books, I Went Walking.
Let's see how many animals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I didn't get to this one, 6. So right now I have 2 math games. One that's a little bit more complex because I have quite a few children who are returning from last year who will go to kindergarten, and I know what experiences they had last year. Then I also planned a game that's less abstract and more concrete for the younger or less experienced child.
Nizar's home language is Arabic. In English, he can only count consistently in sets of 3 or less. Based on Brenda's observations of Nizar and of the research base of children his age, she believes he should be able to count higher than that.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6, all right. When I was thinking about Nizar as I put out the math game, I was hoping that he would be able to hear me or some other children use the rote counting sequence at least up to 6, since there are 6 dots on the die, or perhaps if they wanted to count how many spaces there were between the animals on the math game, there might be some rote counting that goes on there. I was also hoping that he would have an opportunity to demonstrate to me how he quantifies. Does he quantify globally? Does he quantify by using one-to-one correspondence? Is he counting? And if so, how accurate is he? Tell me again how far you're going to go.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
You're going to move 6 spaces. You go ahead and move 6.
After working at the math table, Brenda goes with Nizar to the easier grid game, where she encourages him to think about small sets.
I think I will do 2.
2 for you again. Now what? 2 dogs?
Yes.
I wanted to see if he could count those using one-to-one correspondence, touching each animal as he said the counting word, and if he could do some comparisons between how many objects I had and how many he had. I also thought I could ask some questions like, how many more animals do you have to cover? If you roll a 3, will you cover all of your animals? How many more do I need to cover so I can cover all of them? 2 of them.
Brenda knows that Nizar is also interested in cars. She encourages him to build his math skills while he plays with the snap beads.
How many green ones do you have? I want to make mine just like yours.
2, 3.
All right, so it's not an intentional math activity, but I feel like everything in the classroom has the potential for math learning and for me to ask questions, especially with something like those snap blocks, because I know from my observations of him, he makes cars. So I thought, well, that'll give me an opportunity to ask, how many wheels do you have? How many more will you need?
Throughout the next week, Brenda continues to observe Nizar and the other children in her classroom to see what new math activities might relate to the children's interests. We went back to Brenda's classroom 1 week later to see what adaptations she made. In order to continue to build on Nizar's quantifying and rote counting, Brenda speaks with his parents to determine where his math skills are in his home language.
And the dad said in his native language, Nizar can count to 4, which is about where he's counting in English, and that was why I was trying to model in the first game that I played with him, trying to model up to 6 on the die, and that in his native language, he uses one-to-one correspondence to solve problems.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
5 spaces. Do you agree, Nizar? Does he have 5? 1, 2. He's looking carefully. Do you think it's 5 also?
1, 2, 3, 5.
As I observed him initially playing the games, he seemed pretty excited, but the more it became, I think, a challenge for him to solve the problem, and the more he observed other children solving the problem that maybe he didn't feel like he could solve, I started to see him back away from it a little bit. No, I don't think I'll take this risk. This is a little too scary. Let me stay with something that's comfortable. I noticed that he just began to speak very rapidly, and he got the rote counting sequence up to about 4 or maybe 5, and then he started saying even words that don't exist, 11-teen and things like that. I think trying to kind of cover up for what he didn't feel like he knew and make it over with quickly. Let's get through it. I'll point while you count. Ready?
1, 2, 3,
4,
16.
5, 6.
No, 11.
You'd like it to be 11-teen, wouldn't you? Try it again.
Brenda also incorporates math into a song the children have been singing in large group that holds Nizar's interest.
My white balloon goes sailing, oh so very high. All at once it goes ker-pop, another one will fly. How many have we popped so far? 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm still going to continue to keep the quantities of objects I'm asking him to solve problems with under 5 or 6 for a while, till he becomes more comfortable with that, and I have to write all this down so I can remember it, and kind of look for patterns. You know, okay, he was rote counting up to 4, well, he's added 5 onto that now. All right, let's see if, in a couple of weeks, if I ask his parents whether his rote counting in his native language has increased to 5 or 6. I'm going to really keep them involved and give them ideas for what they can do at home that will be interesting to him.